It'll come back to you.
Yeah. They just what they just won't do what comes naturally to them. Anyway.
Mhm.
Okay, so what else? Is there anything else that we wanted that you want to
Uh,
cover as we're
well, yeah. Thanks for interrupting me.
doing the setup for all of this? This
Right,
really
right. So after
long
design,
setup?
yeah, it's a long setup. After design, where in design it talks about prototyping and how to what starting points you go through and how to understand your customers and how to consider the business model and and work it into the not work into how to consider the value proposition model, work into the business model,
Yeah.
and it goes through the process. Probably it's the best chapter in the book, as it should be. Then it talks about testing, which is the basically you create your thesis, you do the best you can internally, and take your model out there, test it, see how it works. It's got a great overview, step by step, on how to test things and how to confirm. A bunch of questions to ask, some best practices. Yeah, and then the the last big section there is just how to evolve, right? You got a model that works, and how do you do the maintenance to make sure that you're maintaining your value proposition, you're keeping up with changing times. The that's a fun chapter where you really kind of tie back into the business model and making sure that your value proposition is growing as it needs to.
Yeah. That's actually sounds like a really I like that one. Cuz it's so easy for a business to become stale or become so wedded to its current wave or its way of doing things.
It's normal because, success varying from success, especially in a corporate environment,
Mhm.
very risky,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And applying business models is not cheap,
No, that is so true.
right?
Um,
It's not expensive, but okay, for an established company, I'd say it's not expensive compared to the risk of failure.
the risk of
For a
failure.
startup, it's a hard perspective to look at.
Uh-huh.
The A lot of what's in this book, it can be intimidating because when you listen to all the steps, it says, "Hey, break out into teams. Take 3 or 4 people and, take 5 teams of 3 or 4 people and come back." Right?
Uh-huh.
And any entrepreneur is like, "Oh shit, I don't even want to tell anybody about my idea because they may steal it." Right? Dumbest thing ever,
That
by the way. Right?
that
Uh,
is true. Yeah, oh my gosh.
right?
It's
The
just dumb.
what I love is for somebody to say, "I'm going to share my idea with you," sign an NDA and a non-compete. And I'm like, "No. No, I'll do the NDA, right? That's automatic. I'm not gonna share your crap with anybody, even if it's
Yeah.
the most beautiful smelling crap in the world. But
Uh,
just to have me look at your idea and then say I can't work in this field anymore, grow up,
oh, I know.
right?
It's one of
Anybody
the
that says
things.
that, just lying to you.
All right. So
Actually,
here's
I
the
think
thing.
they're illegal now in the States as of
Uh,
last year or
yes
the end of this
and
year.
no. It's a weird scenario. They're not as enforceable as people would think. Um,
Mhm,
so for example, I end up I end up signing a ton of non-competes and stuff um because that's just the nature of the business that I'm in and that I
mhm,
do. The problem is that if that it's very difficult for them to actually truly enforce that because like a lot of times with the letter of the law is essentially said is it's kind of like what you said. The letter of the non-compete is you can no longer work in the industry. You have to work in a completely different industry. Well, that's not possible.
mhm,
So it's kind of one of those things where if I were to take it to court, if they were to try to pursue it in court, it would be pretty easy. It would probably be easy for me to go back to the court and say, well, look, what they're trying to do is ruin me and destroy me because now I can no longer provide for
Mhm.
myself. So
Yep.
I have to.
Yeah,
But
and on top of that, the compensation they gave me wasn't in comparison with
yes,
the 5-year non-compete clause.
exactly. But there is a oh, you can do non competes, especially with executives of companies, so that they don't that executives cannot go and work for rival companies within a set amount of time. And a lot of times those non-competes will be very convoluted from our standpoint, but from a legal
Mhm,
standpoint it's more like, so somebody can't leave Bank of America and go work for Capital One.
mhm.
An executive. Somebody
Okay.
can't leave
Mhm,
TD Ameritrade and go work for Charles Schwab at the
mhm.
executive level,
Yep.
because of the way those are. However, they could leave and go
But on
work
top
for
of that,
something else.
nowadays, if they hire them, they become very publicly scrutinized.
Exactly. And that's part of the reason why I think a lot of non-compete, a lot of uh places are not doing the non-competes anymore, because they kind of look at it and recognize, yeah, that's not, like, we know and we can figure
Uh-huh.
out what you're doing. So,
Exactly. We can figure it out anyways. Don't be a dumbass. And on top of that, CEOs at that C staff at that level tend
yes.
to work in that field, their circle. They're all friends, like hate each other or not, right? They're basically buddies.
Oh yeah. Well, so a great example of all of that is Silicon Valley. I don't
Mhm.
know how it is right now, but it used to be that everybody would jump ship all the time. So you'd go work for a
Yep.
company for a couple of months, and then this new startup would pop up and poach you from from the other one. And
Yep.
that's the other one that's actually very enforceable, is the poaching. And that is
Mhm.
technically falls under the non compete, but that is very enforceable. Um, uh, and is kind of important. Like, you don't want somebody leaving your company and poaching your people. Um,
Yeah. Well, there's also the question of how poachable are you during interviews?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And most people that show poachability, they show it early on. They're
Yeah.
hoppers, right?
Oh yeah.
You don't hire these guys,
Oh, it's like, well, yeah.
right?
Like
It's
one of
like I see you spent 8 months in your last job and you left, and the previous one was 3 months, and the one before that was 7. I'm not hiring you.
Yep,
Good luck.
exactly.
Oh, and you didn't list all your employers in this period. Ciao. Right?
That's an important one right there.
You know, I think nowadays maybe we don't expect anybody to stay for more than 2 years, but if it's less than a year, you do that twice. Good luck.
I agree. Because that's one of the
And even
things.
more, if I know the company that you left, right? And I know they're not a crap company, and I probably know the company you left because it's a kind of a small industry, in fact.
Mhm.
Good luck, right? If you left in like 3 months from a company, you better have a good story because I'm
Oh
going to
yeah,
call them and
that's
say, yeah, did Mary Jane really sexually harass John Smith?
Yeah, that's a very good point too. Because the sorry, hold on, I'm
And
trying
I'll
to think
probably
of
even
something.
be asking these questions not over the phone, but over a beer,
Oh, hopefully a verb. Yeah.
right?
Oh, that's fine.
To ask, can we talk about this? Because I feel like Joe's going to take a lot of our money.
Yeah, well, that's kind of where we're going. But anyway, I
Let's
don't
go
want
there.
to. I don't want to go down that road, because we have stuff that we really want to talk about with this. I
Okay.
would
Okay.
just sit there and say, so this one, there's this one HR person who went on to social media and made a post saying, please do all of this, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to get fired, and all of us HR people, we all talk to each other, and you will never get hired again. That's the gist of what she said. She ended up getting fired from her job because she let the cat out of
She
the bag.
said the thing you're not supposed to say out loud.
Yes. But like in all reality, she's absolutely correct.
Oh, she's
HR
totally correct.
people talk. They talk to each other.
Oh, yeah, they do.
And
This is their job.
yeah,
But you think the only job of HR is to read policies by the government and pretend to fire people in convenient ways?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Part of their job is to lie about why you fired them.
Yep,
Part of their part of their job is to fire people without prejudice and to make sure that they can't retaliate. So, which often includes fake documentation,
yep.
creating documentation and path for firing.
Mhm.
As you have seen in your path, um,
Well, so in my path, people can make up reasons to get rid of people because they just get rubbed the wrong. They get their panties in a bunch.
and that's generally what it is, right? So what happens is there's a conflict in the company. Maybe egos were rubbed, or maybe somebody just, instead of saying, "Hey, it's not working," they're going to try to create a process, right? Because they're full of fear, right? So people with fear minds, when you're working for somebody, watch out for people with a fear mindset. This is why you should be interviewing everybody that you are going to be working for very closely, right? So uh, during the interview process, you should be talking to the team you're going to be working for and the next
Mhm.
person up, right?
Yes.
And I think you should have the right, and you should be brave enough to say, "Hey, I want to know my boss, right? And I want to know his boss, and just quick, like, give me 5 minutes,
Hmm.
right? Let me talk to them. I want to see what the philosophy is. I want to see if we jive, right? Because when you're interviewing, you're bringing value, right? Now,
Yes.
if you're okay with just being a cog at Walmart, cool. But anybody in listening to this show is either a cog in Walmart hating it, or trying to, just listening from experience because they're kind of in the same boat as us.
Yep.
And do that interview, right?
Yep.
Because you, first of all, if it's not going to be a good fit for that next up, right? And for your direct supervisor,
Hmm.
better know that ahead of time.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
So really everybody appreciates it. And I don't know, where I come from, everybody appreciates a little bit of manhood.
Not always so much
Even we
anymore.
appreciate a little bit of feminism in the right direction. Right? No,
Yep.
I love strong women, right? I love strong men, you know. That's why I watched the women's boxing on the Olympics. Uh, That's why I read about it.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
couldn't stand to watch men beating women, so I didn't watch it, but I was excited to say that the science shows that there's no difference between men and women in this case.
Yep. All right.
All right, so that's the outline of the book, and
And a
probably
bunch of
it
other fun
begs,
stuff.
yeah, I mean that's the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now the nuances in the detail, there's an afterword,
Yeah.
um, right? There should always be an afterword, and it's fun. And of course, it's got I already talked about the back of the book, which was bad value proposition.
Hmm.
Um, so let me see. Here's how I look at it, right? Ev-
Hmm.
this is how every business that I've talked to has started off. And maybe this is where I am in the industry, right? But everybody comes to me and says, I have this idea for this app and I want it to do this and this. And here's how I like it to work, roughly,
Hmm.
right? Some people have like all the details done, some people already have design done. Uh Very rarely do I have anybody that has looked at the business model. Actually, I've never had anybody come to me with a business model on a new startup. I have had a couple people that have received financing come to me with a business model, and that worked
Hmm.
out. And that's a beautiful thing to see. Generally, these are guys that are using IoT devices, wearables,
Yeah.
that have had to raise, you know, three,
Let's
five, 600,000.
let's pause there for a sec. So the reason why that's the case, not for you for your benefit, but for the listener benefit, is if you are trying to receive funding of any sort, you have to show a return on investment. And by showing a return on investment, it requires you to go through the business model to indicate how the business is going to make money. So that's why for those who are haven't been who aren't versed in this scenario, uh, I I am, partly because that's what I'm going through right now with my family, partly because I knew that ahead of time when we were getting ready to do this, because I had sat down to try to see what it would look like to fund some of my other businesses. And I realized, oh, you need a business plan to approach a bank to ask for a business loan, or you need a business plan for investors. That's why that's the case. So, and that's why and then because you were saying it's specifically for IoT people, they need the money to buy the equipment, to be able to prototype the equipment, to be able to prove that their idea works. So anyway,
Yeah. Um, so there's a lot of nuance in what you said.
yes, I know
Um,
there is, and we don't have time to go through that, I'm sure.
I think we should. Okay,
No.
let's do a 2-minute version.
Oh boy, can you?
Okay, just 2 minutes. I'm going to keep it down.
Challenge.
Accepted. All right. So there's people perceive value in different ways, return on investment in different ways.
Yes.
Some isn't actually cash, some is popularity, such as Kamala Harris or Trump, right? Others is actual return on investment. Others is I'm looking to do good in the world and I want to have these kind of lovey dove feelings and to bring water to Africa. Um, so defining value, it can come in different scales. You don't always have to show it all, but you have to show the vision.
Hmm.
And to do it well, you should have thought through all the stuff in these two books, the business model and the value proposition, the customer profiles, and have thought through that and argue through that at least a little bit, and done some interviews to show some statistical information that you're valid in this.
Yep.
And to keep this to the 2 minute pause, I'm saying if you do all that, you have more than 80% or 90% of the people out there looking for funds.
Yes. Yep.
Did I meet the challenge?
I think you met the challenge.
Amazing. All right, you want to talk about the on page 8? You want to go through the value map and the customer profile, kind of define that a little bit,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
because essentially the whole that's what the whole first chapter is.
Yeah. So, do you want to show it?
Really, it's about fit. I'm going to show it.
Yeah. So,
So
uh,
it doesn't. You can't see the word fit,
yeah,
right?
they didn't do a good job of testing that out, but whatever.
But anyways, all the whole first chapter
Hmm.
is really to see if your value map has a fit with your customers' needs.
Yeah.
And now I'm
So,
going to let you go on from there.
well, yeah. So one of the big things that sparks in my mind when looking at and thinking about these things is Seth Godin's book, "This Is Marketing."
Hmm.
Uh, One of the big that book is really good, and there's a ton of lessons in it, as is usual in his books. But one of the number one takeaways that I've ever had from that book, and I constantly think about, is the concept of this is not for you. When you see a product and you sit there and you ask, why would anyone buy that? Well, that's because the product is not for you. It's not your, like, you are not the target audience, essentially. And that's what's going on here, and what Phil's talking about with fit and everything. So when you're trying to create a product, or when you have a product, one of the values that you have to kind of sit there and do is look and see what is the pain that your customer that your product is trying to resolve. What is it trying to get rid of? We could take sometimes that pain is very real. So, a very simple one would be Tylenol, headaches and such. Like that, that is a pain that you Tylenol is trying to take away. Sometimes it's very imaginary. For example, the iPhone. When the iPhone came out, what pain did anybody have with the iPhone? We were living just fine without it. But then Steve Jobs came and introduced the iPhone, and he introduced you to a pain that you did not know that you had. Because and in all reality,
He
it's
showed you
an
the gains.
yeah. Well, so it's an imaginary pain, because then what he ended up doing is showing you what you gain by having that. So the idea is that you want to try and show, like, you want to take that knife, you want to stick that knife into the into your customer's pain point, and your product should be the relief of removing that knife. And so you gain, like, what you gain by that. Now, sometimes there's the concept of, okay, well, your pain is very small. You may not sit there and be like, I don't really need that. I don't really need this thing. So continuing along the iPhone example, one of the biggest gains that people get with an iPhone, like switching from an Android phone to an iPhone, is that blue message bubble in iMessages. Like, that's a gain right there. It's like social, you're gaining social acceptance, you're gaining social or not so much social acceptance, you're gaining, you're becoming a part of a
Prestige.
tribe. What was that?
Prestige. Okay, tribe is a better word.
Yeah. um so that's kind of what's going on. And then the obvious one on this diagram is kind of like the products and services that you're providing. iPhone, talking on the phone, listening to music on the go, texting your friends,
Yep.
browsing the internet, all of that stuff.
Mhm.
um
Computer in
that
the hands.
one, well, yeah, like that aspect of this value map should be the most obvious and the easiest one, in my opinion. Like, you should be able to quickly write that down and give that. The hard one is definitely going to be, for some products, is definitely going to be what pain are you relieving, and then the gain, and also the gain, like that can be hard,
Mhm.
depending upon the product and stuff.